Hey, how's it going, guys? My name is John Park, and welcome to the design section of the Patreon Foundation tutorial. This is chapter 1, and I'm going to be talking about materials and thumbnailing. So for today's use of tools, I'm going to be using the brush pen here. This is the Pentel GFKP. I'm going to be using also the just kind of like a regular ballpoint pen. This is roughly 0.5. And last but not least, I'm going to be using a marker. Now, this is just a standard Prismacolor marker, and I only like to prefer kind of like a 20 to 30% gray, and it's really helpful. It's really great for just sketching. So one thing that I would say is just go ahead and try it out, test it out on paper, and just kind of see if this is the right color, the right tone that you like. And along goes with some of the other tools as well. The pen, make sure that you like kind of the lines and the quality of the ink that is being created from these tools. Because one thing is, you always want to be comfortable when you're using the tools, okay? Because it will help with generating good drawings and good ideas. So let's go ahead and get started. Alright, so for the first demonstration, I want to use the brush pen. Main reason being is that I actually want to generate just a bunch of silhouette designs, and our topic, our theme for today's demo is going to be Final Fantasy inspired airships. Now you guys some of you guys may be familiar with the airships. If you're not, go ahead and Google and just look that up. It's really famous in all the Final Fantasy game series. There's like these fantastical vehicle designs that basically look like pirate ships with dragon wings and propellers, and they're all kind of mashed together, so really fun. But I'm going to be using the brush pen to do our silhouette designs. And so silhouette designs, you may use a brush pen or a marker of a black color, but I like using the brush pen because I can get some nice thick and thin lines. So what's great about this is that you can get varying weights. We can go ahead and zoom the camera in. Get varying weights from thick to medium to thin. So I'm going to go ahead and get started with my first set of silhouettes here. Now if you guys are new to this and you're kind of unsure of how to go about it, one thing that I always like to do is I like to draw a ground plane right here. Now the ground plane is going to determine not only the ground but also just the general length, okay? And I like to do varying ground plane lengths so that it'll tell me how big of a size or how big of an airship that I can be drawing out. Now for this exercise, it's not about the details, it's all about the shapes. So go ahead and just sketch in some really loose just ideas. And all I'm really trying to go for is just the silhouette design. That's all I really care for at this point. Something like that, just really loose and fast. Nothing crazy. We can do one that's kind of more of a fish inspired. And I just want to think about shapes. Okay, and the reason why I'm starting off with a sketch is because it's easier. If it's easier for you to visualize, then I would say go ahead and start off with a sketch, and then we'll fill it in with our black marker or a black brush pen. Sometimes I always like to kind of draw in my my general proportions using this technique, only because it helps me to just kind of get like a lot of the ideas out, and whether they're good or bad, it doesn't really matter. It's just I just want to make sure I'm having fun with the ideas, and that like whatever I'm creating, it has some sort of visual interest, just proportionally, and maybe even conceptually. If you feel like you're hitting on some really neat ideas, but I'm really looking for just cool shapes. Okay, So let's do maybe just one more here. Maybe I'll do like a smaller one. And what's fun about all these is that you can't go wrong. You know, silhouette designs is one of my favorite things where no matter what you do, you just can't go wrong with it. You know, there's no right or wrong to designing this stuff. So this is what I really enjoy about designing using this technique. Okay, so something like that. So we just got like a lot of wacky shapes. A lot of my inspiration is kind of like things from boats. Also, you know, things from like, you know, like bat wings or animals that kind of have like a lot of these types of webbing and membrane-y looking kind of wing structures here. And what I'm going to do next is I'm actually going to go ahead and fill these in. And I'm just going to fill in the silhouette. So using my brush pen, I'm going to go ahead and just start filling a lot of this stuff in here. And go ahead and turn the page so that you're not necessarily, you know, being a slave to your own paper here. You know, whatever makes the process or the job comfortable. Okay, something like that. I'm going to put in small shapes here for scale, you know, just to give it a little bit more diversity. Okay, and there you have it. And here's our page of silhouettes. Now you see, like, it goes by relatively quickly. And you can do these within like a minute or two. So that pretty much concludes chapter 1 of materials, and starting off with some thumbnail silhouettes. Alright, welcome to chapter 2. In this demonstration I'm going to be using the marker and the pen to be doing our design exploration. Let's go ahead and get started. So with the marker here, it's 30% gray, and as I've shown you guys before, it's a really light kind of finish here. And I'm not going to necessarily be coloring with this, but more or less I'm going to be actually drawing with the marker. I'm going to be drawing with the marker to kind of get some of my shapes. And it's going to be very similar to the way I'm drawing, or how I got some of my shapes in my silhouettes here. So we're going to do the same exercise, but this time I'm going to use a marker to kind of come up with some interesting shape designs. And you know, in this exercise, because it's going to be a marker and pen demo, we can start to kind of think about some, you know, angled designs or angled 3/4 views or side views, whatever you're comfortable with, really. And I'm just going to go ahead and just kind of think about just some areas where I can put in some cool shapes. And these aren't clearly defined just yet, but I'm sketching in. I'm thinking about, you know, what this could be, right? Maybe some shield thing here, maybe some propeller element here. And maybe here we have kind of like an interesting front piece that acts as like maybe a shield or something. Because this is Final Fantasy, I want you guys to go as wild and crazy as you can. You know, there's no rules. That's why I really love doing these types of designs, or this theme, because it's all about just making cool stuff. You know, the more logic you put in there, it's great, but then, you know, you want to be able to break that logic at a certain point and just kind of have fun with just generating some wacky ideas. Alright, and there you go. I have like some sort of really weird looking spaceship thing. I can use the marker to fill in just some areas of darker value, but it's not necessarily coloring or painting things in. It's if I just want to darken things up to remind myself what areas are darker versus what areas are lighter in terms of just the general materials. Okay, let's go ahead and do another one. Here, thinking about, I'll do like a side view. Again, using the lines to determine my width here. And maybe this one is just more of a standard kind of blimp design. There's a lot of really unique designs that we can explore. But maybe this one's just more of like a standard blimp kind of design for this one here. And I'm thinking it might be kind of cool if this thing was connected somehow. So starting off with this one, I'm going to go ahead and get into kind of our design here. And if you need reference, go ahead and look up reference. If you need inspiration, please do that. A lot of times when I do this, even for myself, I need kind of some nice inspiration. And again, it's not the most perfect drawing, it's just more about the ideas. So, and these are meant to be relatively, quick and rough. So if you need to be scruffy with them, it's fine. Because it's all about just kind of thinking about the information. Maybe something here that's like holding the other side of this sail. And a lot of times, if I don't know, I'm just going to put in some sort of detail that's going to kind of be a temporary placeholder. Okay, if you guys can't see what I'm doing, and if you look really closely at the details here, it's kind of nothing. It's like not anything real. It's just, I'm just kind of following the shape that I have. Okay. There we go. I have some details here. Maybe some windows or something in the front. And then this here, I want to treat this kind of like a post. And add like a little finish there. And maybe these are all connected, kind of like the sails. Okay? Something like that. And let's go ahead and do the last propeller design. So you can see it's kind of it's coming together, more or less. Now this is where I want you guys to really think about line weight, because this is starting to kind of overlap on top of itself, as you can tell. And it can get pretty confusing in terms of like what is in front and what's behind. And I'm going to talk about that in just a moment. So we have this design here, and we have areas that are clearly overlapping, and I know that this propeller is going to be in front, so I'm going to outline this and pop it forward. Let's just go ahead and finish this up here so I can show you guys what I mean by that. And I'm just going to go ahead and this, and let's go ahead and this is area I'm thinking about being kind of like more of like a window here, so let's make this much more of like a nice window deck, you know, like a viewing platform. And all this other stuff here around it is just going to be support. Okay, and this stuff is going to be attached right at the base of this. I'm thinking about like it having some like tension poles here. Just like so. And then up here, if you guys can see, I can leave that simple, but since this is simple and that's relatively simple as well, I think it's worth adding a little bit of complexity to that. So we can do one of two things. We can actually add texture, or we can add a graphic. I think in this sense, I'm going to add kind of like an overall texture. Maybe something that kind of helps sell the form. Maybe something like that. And maybe here I can add just a little bit of texture as well, because I kind of want this to be a very organic type of membrane. So I'm going to go really, really light. And I want you guys to keep in mind that I'm kind of feathering my lines here. So as I go wrap around this form, I'm actually going a lot lighter. I don't want to get too fussy and add too much detail everywhere, just the right amount. So it kind of feels like this nice tiling texture, and I want that contrast. That's kind of the most important thing. And with that, I can add just extra little hints of detail here, kind of keep it ornate. And maybe we can just do something like that. Okay, now there you have it. This is kind of like how our design came out. Now, this is relatively getting hard to see just because of the amount of detail, right? it's getting really hard to see. So this is where I want us to kind of think about how, how we're gonna separate this and make it clear. So let's just go ahead and pump out the first propeller here, and I'm just gonna beef up the lines just so this is a lot thicker. And there you go. You pretty much have it. You can probably pump up some more of the line weights and as you continue, but that's basically as far as I'm going to take it here. Let me know if you guys have any questions, and I'm going to leave this here so just to give you guys a sketch reminder of how to just kind of approach it loosely in the first stages. This is a really loose version, and this is a little bit more tighter, and you can just kind of see, like, as a sketch, this is it's a decent sized sketch. It's like maybe 3 inches, but it starts to kind of dial in, and we started from silhouettes here and we went into some sketching. Hope you guys enjoy, and I will see you guys next time. Thanks.
Hi everyone, this is Daniel Park with you from Patreon Foundation. Thank you for having me here. And so this is going to be part 2 of our tutorial session on our flying ship here, sci-fi ship. So let's take a quick look at what the phase 1 was about. It was it looks like there were some silhouette studies, okay, really quick, about these fantasy ships and shapes, and then came down and finalized to about 2 designs. And what I'll be focusing on is this one right here on the upper left hand corner. So today we're going to be actually getting this design and doing a little bit of 3D bashing in SketchUp. So let's get started. Now I made my own account, and I have my models that are kind of saved out. So with my other projects that I work on, I like to save out a bunch of projects or kind of things that I like bashing. So if I go to my 3D warehouse, which is my collection of models, see, I have a bunch of models that I like, right? And it keeps on going. So let's go to a couple models that I've actually liked in here and see if I can find it. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to download it directly into my model. So I found a really cool model here. Let's download it in. Load this directly into your SketchUp model. Okay. Alright. So we kind of get an idea here. Now a lot of times you're not going to be using every part of the model. Okay, I'm going to go to default styles so I can get a better view of this object here. It's kind of another different version of an airship, which is cool, but I'm going to change the design to our design. So I'm just going to click at a bunch of panels and get rid of a lot of things. All these things have been grouped out, so they're easy to erase. I think I like these pieces right here. I don't like this rear piece. I do like that piece, however. Let's keep that piece. Okay. Looks pretty good so far. Let's get rid of these details. Okay, it looks like they made this in a different program. The mesh looks like it's not of SketchUp. So I'm just going around deleting parts that I don't need. Okay. I probably won't need that hull, that bottom hull. Ooh, there looks like there's some really cool pieces in here, which I didn't even see. See if I can use those pieces somewhere else in my model. Oh, I don't want that. Alright. So, before I go too far, sometimes SketchUp kind of crashes, so I'm just going to save it out really quick. Shoot demo. Okay, let's save it out. Okay, let's save out. Alright, back at it. Okay, so I got a bunch of bits and pieces that I do like. It's not too bad. There's some cool little pieces here. Okay. Some of these details are kind of odd, so I'm gonna take them out of here. Okay. Alright, so those are good bits and pieces that we're gonna use. Okay, looks pretty cool. Looking at the original design. And let's get back into our warehouse and get some more models. See here. As you guys can see, I have some pretty cool models here. That looks a little better, but let's see here. I think this might be a little bit more appropriate. Okay, let's download this model. Whoop. Whoa, comes with the whole ocean. Alright. No worry, we can erase this big old ocean. Okay, so I'm gonna move it. So in this move, I'm gonna, if you hover over this, you see these little plus marks, these red plus marks. Okay. So if you do this, if you hover over it, it'll give you this little compass protractor looking thing. And if you click that, you can rotate it. So if you look at your bottom right, there's an angle degree. I'm gonna go to 90 degrees and let it go. So I like the shape of this ship a lot better. It just looks more appropriate. But obviously the sails are kind of too big for our design. Let's shrink some of these sails so it's more appropriate. So I'm pressing S and I'm just shrinking it down. Okay? Do you see how I'm kind of looking at my original design right here? Right up on the top. And I'm just kind of getting a better feel for this total section up here, that top section. Okay? So that's my immediate goal right now. Okay, so I'm gonna move it to the left, and if I want to duplicate it, I want to hold Alt Option, and it's gonna duplicate it. It's gonna copy it. Okay, and just let go of your mouse key, and there you go. Voila. You have a duplicated surface. I want to flip it, so let's go to Edit. I'm gonna grab my other mouse here. Just 1 second. Alright, we're back. Okay, let's see. Now let's flip that. So I'm gonna right click. So if I left click and I right click, and I could flip along components red, green, or blue. So that those are on different axes, so that's not the right one. Let's try green. That is the right one. Okay. Okay, kind of have it in place. Now let's rotate. Let's rotate the front of our sail so it looks like it can kind of fit and match our design a little bit more accurately. Alright. Okay, and let's rotate this guy just a little bit. It's looking really aggressive. I like it. The proportions work pretty good so far. It's looking pretty good. Alright, looks like we're kind of getting somewhere now. I'm just a lot happier with that change. Sometimes, like, you might have to go back and redo certain areas, but it's a huge change. So here on our original design, looks like there's kind of some hinges and parts like that, but let's see if we can actually kind of maneuver around that. Yeah, for some reason I think the exposed parts work better here. Okay. All right. Let's get to 3D models here. And I'm going to go to my liked collections and I'm going to grab a turbine of sorts that I think might look pretty cool. All right. I think there's something really cool in here. So let's just take a quick look here, because there's a lot of geometry here. There's over 274,000 polygons here. So it's a lot of geometry. That's why I kind of save out pretty often on SketchUp. Okay. So what I'm gonna do is, let's see here. Let's get this into place. I am going to pick and choose one of the models, and I'm going to put it into place. So you guys do not have to wait. So I'll be right back. All right, guys. So we're back. I actually made a couple adjustments and finished up certain portions right here. Looks a little bit more interesting than that wood paneling that I had covering it up. So let's move forward. Okay. It looks pretty exposed, so I'm gonna just add in something that's very similar. I was looking at the front of this. It looked kind of like a screwdriver of sorts. So let's see if we can find something in our 3D warehouse. Let's see. Screw. Maybe that kind of looks like a dirt mining vehicle as well. So I think what's important is to actually choose the right words to get your assets. There we go. Perfect. So it looks something like this, the front section, or maybe even more like that. So let's download that into the model. All right. So it looks pretty similar to that sort of screw design that we have. Some of these models are really well built, so you're gonna have to erase sections of them. A lot of geometry. Look at all these things for kit bashing. Again, a great tool. There are other areas, there are other programs that you can download free models and assets, but again, there aren't too many models built in other programs. So I think SketchUp is, for bashing, at least for our purposes, it's the best. Okay. So let's put this into place. Let's do the front view. see where it's at, because it's probably out of range. Alright. Let's move it over here. Press Alt Option and let that go. Looks pretty good. Looks way more interesting. Great. Let's see here. Looks like there's a dual bar right here. There's a sort of odd geometry going on here. Which I actually don't mind. Let's keep it. I want to dupe this and take one more piece of this. Okay. So it looks a little bit more sturdy. Even though we're probably not going to see the backside, because I'm going to do a 3/4 front view of this model, that just for practice sake, I'm going to dupe it on the other side. Now, even though they're not perfectly touching, it's totally fine. Again, this is just a kit bash model. Sorry, SketchUp, sometimes when you have a lot of geometry, it really kind of slows down your processor, so just know that. Save here really quickly. As we're saving, let's take a quick look at our model here. This looks pretty cool. It's getting there. It looks like there's some sort of like arm holster pieces that might be kind of cool. I think I'd probably want to add in some hydraulics of sorts. I'll fix later. Okay. Now let's go to the 3D warehouse. Let's look at hydraulics. Or, you know what? Might be even better. Let's look at F1 race car. Okay, so I want to get basically the hydraulics from here. They look okay. They don't look as great. How about monster trucks? Monster trucks have a lot of hydraulics on the bottom. Looks interesting. I think that'll work. Let's not overthink it too much. Again, I think what's important with doing a kit bash is that, you know, it's really to get the concept out, and it doesn't need to be perfect. If it did, we'd probably build it using 3ds Max or Modo. But since it's not it's not a perfect concept, it's just really just getting the idea out. I try not to overthink what I'm doing. Okay. Quickly save. And again, I like to save often. So there's a centerpiece right here. I think, we can put something in there that might work really well. And we have this tail piece. That's going to be a little tricky. We have this long tail piece right there, that very kind of organic shape. Fantasy is what I'm going to check out. It looks kind of like a fantasy piece. Let's see here. Fantasy jewel. Jewelry. Let's see here. It looks kind of like this diamond piece right there. Well, when in doubt, go to your models. I have a lot of other models here that are really great. Let's see if I can see if one of these will work. In second thought, I don't think we really need anything there. I think it looks okay with this wing right here. It looks like we're inside of a huge, huge, huge model. Basically. Some of these models are actually built to scale, so they're huge. It's a little too big. See if we can exit out of that. Get back to our model. Okay, one final touch. Let's get one more model. Okay, let's get this into place. Let's go to parallel projection. Let's go to front view. Alright. Now where I want to put it is actually towards the rear of this our vehicle. I wanted some sort of transitional piece right here. Alright, time to wrap this demo up in Photoshop. So what we're going to do is we are going to export the shadow. Okay. And the line from SketchUp and the shaded version. So what I did was have the shade and the shade is on multiply in our layer effects. And our line is on multiply as well. And our value is on normal. Okay. I kind of cleaned up a couple details here on this extra layer. So if you can see, some of the lines were not connecting up. And I added those in. Erased and kind of cleaned it away. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to have these in our separate layers. And that is it. And that is the end of this tutorial. And what we'll be doing is we will be actually transferring these files and going into a painting demo with this later on. Alright, thank you so much for your guys' support for Patreon Foundation Group. And I will see you next month. Alright.
Hey guys, and welcome to the digital section of the Foundation tutorial on the Fantasy Airship demo. My name is Matthew Zickery, and we're going to go ahead and now take this SketchUp model and build on top of it in Photoshop and add some textures and shadow information in order to wrap up the design. So first what you're going to see me do here is I'm actually going to go ahead and establish the background so that way I can really have my highlights pop up on the design and I'm not working against the white background here. We're working in Photoshop CS6 and currently just doing this with the gradient tool, and I was just playing with the levels a little bit to see how dark I wanted the gradient and how quick I wanted the fall off to be. So after that, now we're going to go ahead and now extract all the details from the SketchUp model that Daniel created for us. Indicating our lighting direction. We're going to have the light come from the top left and slightly behind the ship, very similar to how the demo was actually prepped for us. And now what we're going to go ahead and do is I want to create a shadow layer on our ship. So there we have the line drawing version. We have my background. We'll just turn that off for now. And I've taken our ship and created a levels layer, reducing the black point, or I should say the white point, by about 50%. And referencing the SketchUp version, I'm going to go back and forth and just create a little bit more realistic sense of a shadow on this object. You could see looking at the SketchUp version, it's very cut out, especially on areas such as those flags. It's very graphical, which is nice, but we want to create a little bit more realism. You know, we want soft transitions, we want coarse shadows, all that good stuff. And once again, this is simply on the levels layer, and I like to work with levels layers because anytime I change information underneath it, it will still apply that layer. And for me, that works better than trying to apply a gray multiply layer on top of this or something of that nature. So based off our lighting direction, any any side that's not getting hit with light. We're just going to go ahead and quickly darken right now. It doesn't need to be picture perfect, but as close as we can get it will be really beneficial moving forward. I'm going to cheat and use some of the shadow layers created from our 3D file, and that way I can kind of hide and bring back some of the highlights, and really helps me without having to be too clean and really zooming in, 100% in order to get every little nick and cranny that's possible. Once again, the cleaner we are at this current phase, the easier it's going to be moving forward. Extracting the shadow right here on the deck, as well as some of these cast shadows that are falling onto part of the boat. And you can imagine how much of a pain it would be to have to plot out all that. So that 3D asset really gives us a head start on moving forward with this. So just toggling them on and off, checking if I missed anywhere. I know a lot of the side I'm going to have in detail, that's why I didn't have those extrusions cast shadow onto the side. Alright, just trying to zoom in now, see if we missed anything. Looking pretty good. So you could see now when we look at just the levels layer alone, it's really starting to have a lot more of a sense of the object's form, and it's much less graphical than what we were provided from the 3D program. It's a nice cast shadow right here from the ring. And I think that will be a good sense for now, and let's go ahead and start adding textures to this bad boy. Alright, cool. So the way that I'm going to begin my texture on this is I'm actually going to start tossing in some photo reference that I found online and just using them as overlay layers. I'm going to remove the saturation. We're going to keep this black and white. And right here, I know some of these are going to give me issues when I wrap it on the side of the boat as an overlay. So I want to get rid of those holes since I already have my own in there. And obviously having them in twice is just going to create a little bit of an issue. I did a fill content fill. That's under the edit setting. I'm going to use a darken layer on top. And now we're going to toss it on overlay. And we don't have to be so precious with this. We're really just doing it just for some of the detail. Doing a little bit of a warp. Using a perspective warp on it now. And you could see where some of those holes that weren't perfectly taken care of are giving us a little bit of an issue. No problem, we can just use a clone brush on those in order to delete them. So this is how I work. I toss on my texture, I put a mask on top of it, and then I reveal only areas where I want the masks to be. Right now, I strictly want this detail on the side of the boat. It can give me noise on other parts of it, but I really want it to wrap with the form. And because I work with this way very often, you guys can go to Edit, Preferences, and change your keyboard shortcut in order to add a mask on top of it and invert it for you. I currently have mine on F1 since, who's going to use Photoshop Help, which was the default keyboard shortcut for that. So now when I push F1, it creates a mask on my layer and inverts it to black so I can just start painting where I want it to reveal. So now I'm going to do a levels and adjust some of the black point. Remember that we still have our shadow layer beneath, and that's very beneficial right now because we have overlay on top. So it's going to retain a lot of our levels underneath. So now we're sourcing a nearby area with our clone tool, clone stamp. Holding Alt with a soft brush, and the reason why I use a soft brush is I like those nice soft edges when I'm trying to blend it together. If I was doing this with a hard brush, you'll see a big circle around every time I drop my stylus or pick it up. So we'll continue cleaning up some of this area right here. Have it nice and grouped. Normally I don't go too crazy with my layer organization, but to a certain point I at least try and have it as much as possible, so that way if I need to revert to a certain section of my file I can find it no problem. But you don't want to be restricted by layers. You don't ever want to be restricted by layers because, you know, this is just another tool. This is the third platform you've guys seen in this demo alone. We've done drawing in paper, designing in SketchUp, and now painting in Photoshop. It doesn't matter what media you use as long as you get the result you're aiming for. So right there I extracted the 3D geometry underneath. There was a nice graphic design on it, and I like that dark element we had. And just a little bit of cleanup. So while watching this, I want you guys to know that there isn't only one way to create this. You know, this is just one way to design on top of a 3D model. There's plenty of other ways, you know, especially when you want to get a variety of texture on it, and if you're looking for something very refined versus a loose idea, maybe you're just looking for different design treatments that you can do on top of this. So you don't want to be so precious when you're doing that kind of approach. If right now you're trying to provide just a final detail pass to, you know, pass off to the next phase in the pipeline, then you want to be a little bit cleaner. That way, when the texture artist gets your version of it, they're going to understand exactly what you're trying to represent. And that's really going to help them come back to you, or not come back to you and ask, is this supposed to be wood? You know, is this a metal surface? That's the kind of information that you want to let your artwork do all the talking for you. Now we're just extracting more of those graphic elements from our model. And that way we can use them as masks as well as multiply layers. So any texture we apply underneath it or on top of it, it'll still stay true to what we had before. And as you can see, it's a little bit of working back and forth. You know, sometimes I have to go grab elements from the model portion of this. Other times, you see I actually go ahead and I take my line layer with a white layer underneath it, and that way I can select the area inside. You'll see me do this often, especially on those big sails. Instead of trying to manually use a lasso tool or use the pen tool to select it, a quick click of the magic wand within the line layer with only selecting that layer, you do not have all layers selected on, that's going to give you a perfect selection of everything inside there. Then you can apply a texture, use it as a mask, and be done with it. Grabbing some different elements right here, experimenting with some plain wings. Thought it might be cool to get a little bit of a decal on there as well. Alright, so now I thought it'd be really cool to create my own little design for this sail. I found this little trick a while ago, and I found it to be very useful for coming up with a unique, quick pattern. I'll take the text tool and I'll type a random letter, especially in cursive mode is where I have a lot of fun with it. And for this time I used B, and I did it in a normal type of mode. I didn't have cursive on. Just extended it, duplicated it, and now we're going to put it into a triangle. If we were going for something a little bit more decorative, maybe we would have used an S or an R in a very cursive type of handwriting. And then you can flip it upon itself and then duplicate that underneath it, and you come up with some very interesting designs. And it's one of the ways I like to work with abstraction in order to create something new and unique. This time it was something simple, you know, it was just the letter B. And the reason being is I wanted the ship to be a little bit more aggressive than if I used a cursive letter. You know, if you picture a pirate ship or something that is a little bit more dangerous, it's not going to be as inviting to have, you know, this cursive, beautiful text treatment to it. even if it's not text. And now I have all these little circles within the letters where I can select them and then just fill them in. Trust me, you guys can get a nice variety of designs really rapid with this exploration. Alright, we're just going to merge it all down now. I like to keep a copy of the original. Then we're just going to go ahead and put a nice little border around it to give it a little bit more variety. Just extracting the angle so I don't have to make it up. And let's go ahead and warp this now onto the sail. Alright, so first I'm just going to use my Alt key and drag it with the mouse on each corner. And then after, I can go to warp, hit Control H to hide what I'm seeing. That way it gets rid of all the boundary boxes. And I'm just going to start playing to see if I can get this to warp properly on the sail. You know, I'm sure there might be an easier way to do this. This is, once again, just one quick way I like to do it. Gonna get it to kind of confront to that roundness that we have going on. And we obviously want to make sure that things aren't getting cut off, such as some of the lines on top. And once we have this, what's going to be really cool is now we have a mask because it's a transparent layer. So anytime I need to, you could just hold Alt and click on the layer itself. And I can start inverting colors, putting colors on top, extracting the triangle like you're going to see me do, and put it within itself. Let's see how this would work on overlay as well. That way we still retain our shadow information. Extracting the sail from our line layer. Just deleting that bottom portion. And now I like the idea of having a darker sail. So that's why you see me having to go back now to our original levels layer. Underneath it, I'm going to add a new layer for a base color or a base value. Alright, let's get this back on overlay now. And let's extract that middle section so we can have it be a nice border to itself. So right here, I'm trying to find what value I want it to be. You know, I had an idea in my mind, but I wanted to visually see how it would be light on dark versus how it would be dark on light. And then when doing this, I also wanted to make sure that it was going to be represented as a graphic element on it and not, you know, a mishap in the rendering. Alright, we're going to go ahead and we're going to now switch up this front sail. You know, I explored some variation on it, but I thought it'd be best to leave our main sail, the one with our graphic design on it, and then have this front one much more simpler, perhaps with a cast shadow coming from the one above it. I'm also going to tweak the design a little bit. The sail currently is behind the previous sail. I'm now going to make it so it's in front of it and it's on top of it. I'm using these photos now on a normal layer, which gives me a little bit more control in the value relationships. we're now going to extend our mask. And because doing so, we're also going to have to fix our line drawing, since we do want the line to be present on the image a little bit. So on top of the mask on the line drawing, get rid of that. And then we'll add new line on top using a stroke. Alright, so now we have all of our texture tossed in, and we're just gonna add some final touches over here. I'm creating a new mask for our ship because it got extended a little bit. This way I can select the new mask layer and add any final touches I have. Want to add a little bit of a highlight here. Thought a screen layer might do the job. Decided that wasn't happy with the direction it's going. You can see you got a little layer intense, and I mean the reason for that is I wanted to be sure that you guys can see everything going on instead of merging everything down and being stuck with a portion. I want you guys to have a real thorough step-by-step on this. We have that little highlight that we're gonna fix, that little 1 pixel edge, and we're just gonna nudge it over. Alright, let's go ahead and extract this one more time. It's good that you guys are seeing this. You know, it's not always done perfect the first time around. I'm sure some of you have seen some demos in the past, especially with video content, because it goes through so much editing that you're like, oh my god, how did this artist create such a perfect image all in one shot in an hour and a half? But no, they're spending a lot more time. You're missing a lot of the behind the scenes on the areas that they're failing, on what decision making that they're doing, and that's why I found it very useful just to keep the raw footage in here, so you guys could see what I'm trying and what's not working. And that way when you're doing it, you don't get upset at yourself, like upset that it's not working the way it did on the first try. So instead of using that screen layer, I grabbed the copy merge of the sail and I brightened the hell out of it up in Photoshop. Tossed the mask on it, and now I can use a soft brush and get some gradation in there and get that nice highlight to pop. And I think that's doing a lot more for us than the screen layer would have been able to do. And you can see now that this really reinforces the direction of the light. Especially with the cast shadow on the ground. You know, if we take that cast shadow away, then you guys might get a little confused. Is this boat in the water? Is it touching the surface? You know, is it in the sky? It really doesn't ground the object that you're designing until you have that cast shadow there in place. For a final little touch up right now, I'm just gonna bump up the railing highlights. Since that's facing the light source a lot closer, and you know it's not getting hit with a lot of cast shadows or some of these other textures, I really want it to pop. Last little shadow right here. And it looks like this is gonna do it for it, guys. You know, I know that you guys did receive little snippets of the tutorial, and if you guys would like to see the full slow version of these all done in real time, you know, they were about an hour to 2 hours for each section, and we had to compress that for you guys so we didn't bore you with a 6-hour video right here for the magazine. But you can definitely join us on the Patreon. It's patreon.com/foundation, as well as foundationartgroup.com. You can backtrack any past demo tutorial, including these ones, the full in-depth version of them. And I'm hoping you guys were able to, you know, take away something from this demo. If you guys have any questions at all, feel free to email us or message us on the group. You can email John Park, Daniel Park, or myself, Matthew Zickery. And once again, just wanted to give you a thank you from all three of us and wish you guys have a wonderful rest of your day. Take care.